for the opportunity to be here. And I think Sailad was deliberate about choosing the speaker. I also spent a year here at Columbia University as an Obama scholar. So it feels good to be back in Columbia University after, I think, 4 years ago. And I'm excited. And I really enjoyed Jacqueline's presentation, and which also shows us the best example of what we can do within the continent. And I think what I'm trying to do to you is to bring a bit of data about what is possible with jobs and opportunity in Africa, and also now layer that with what exactly we need to start doing. We know that Africa's population would keep rising. We're very deliberate to understand that if you look at this chart, while Asia is bending backwards a little bit, Africa is on an accelerating scale. And also you see that Europe is flattening out, Latin America, Oceania, and all of that group, none of them is growing up to 2100. If there is a continent that is on the sudden rise in population, that is Africa. And what are we going to do with all of these people? We need to give them jobs. And there's this data I pulled up from the African Youth Development Clock, and it's a new data I think being done with MasterCard, to say currently there are 524 million people who of the working age population in Africa, they are employed, and we have like another 5.5% not employed. So if you put it all together, around 43% of Africa is not employed, maybe a student, inactive, not looking for employment, or not just directly employed. And if you say in the conversation Africa, it says 111 million young Africans, which are 21.2 million, are outside the labor force. So definitely we have a challenge of jobs on our hands, and this also creates a whole lot of opportunity for us. And if you think that clearly, you would find also, look at this chart also definitely and see what exactly does those working population look like in Africa currently. And in 2020, and the light green is where we'll put our eyes on the orange is where we'll put our eyes upon, which is the sub-Saharan Africa. I couldn't find the total African, and 629 people working population in Africa. By 2030, it will be 844 people working population in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. So we're even taking out North Africa from there. Then a trillion people, then 1.3 trillion people by 2050. Shows that there is an emergency and there's an urgency for us to get jobs to our young Africans. And the only way we can scale that is to bring people into the green environment. The reality also is that the majority of jobs in Africa is low skill, and it might also continue to be. And this is just because education levels are low. Being able to attain those heights are also challenging. And you find that even when we've had increase in investments in training and education, there's still lack of jobs, and some of those jobs are still within the low-skilled environment. If you look at it in 1991, 66% of the jobs created within the low-skilled environment. In 2019, which you put up, that's close to almost, that's a lot of years. I mean, if you put that together, you still find that 63% of jobs in Africa are still low-skilled, showing that even if there's an opportunity for us to accelerate green jobs, we still have to also look at the low-hanging fruits of being able to couple solar panels, being able to bring things together for most of the people that we talk about. And there is a potential that has been spoken of here. This is a report by BCG, that there can be 100 million jobs in 2030 within the Great Africa value chain. And I'm happy that by 2033, we have the Jacob's Ladder speaking about they want to be able to enable 30 million jobs. And it's saying that in wind, solar, geothermal, hydro, and battery, there are a lot of opportunities there. Within also the charging infrastructure, climate smart, aquaculture, and poultry, ecosystem conservation, water, the recycling and management, and all of that can catalyze 100 million jobs for us. Biggest potential we also know is in solar. That's where we can get the biggest chunk of the jobs. And you can also find significant level of jobs even from agriculture, which is aquaculture and poultry. A friend of mine here who said that Steve Okeleji is one of the best examples of working to improve regenerative agriculture through agriculture, doing value chain work around transforming energies into much more renewable forms and making sure that people within the lower chain are also be able to embrace such technologies. And the reality is that if we are going to create these jobs, some things will have to shift. You know, the AFDB says that 15 million of new entrants working into the workforce will be created by Africa by 2030. 20% of this job force is potentially going to be in the green employment if we do things right. But the reality is that what leadership do we need to bring in action to be able to make all of this work? What kind of leadership does Africa need to be able to do transformative work? And I'm happy that Jacqueline is showing incredible leadership by making that happen. And I think Stella also mentioned how Kenya wanted to start a green hydrogen project. I mean, and specifically, the education infrastructure there was not existing. And I think that also comes to my own point, that we have to expand knowledge ecosystems. There are no ways to create green jobs. I spent the last 2 weeks in Silicon Valley on in the YGL, that's the Young Global Leaders Program. And I listened to a lot of people who are doing transformative work. They're trying to decarbonize cement. They're trying to remove the carbon footprint from garment manufacturing and different kind of products like that. So and those things are connected to the knowledge ecosystems in Stanford. So it's extremely important that if Africa is going to be able to be part of this green job, it will not just be about buying solar panels from China and coupling them back at home. China also wants to make solar panels and couple them. We would have to also build our own internal knowledge ecosystems. We will also have to activate innovation ecosystems if that's the leadership we want. So it's not just the knowledge ecosystem, we'll connect knowledge to the innovation part of things. Startups, platforms, private sector teams will happen. And for government, then there has to be a huge work on the private sector system. The law of acceleration you see in the climate space is also government funded. And this country that we have is the best example of that under the Inflation Reduction Act, where the President Biden has given billions of dollars to be able to activate innovation clusters and private sector investments in climate change. So it's nothing new if African governments begins to think through in this direction. The other part is also to integrate with global marketplace. We need to be very specific that we're not just going to produce for Africa alone for the global space. And public financing. One thing we're doing in budget is that we've looked at public financing for clean systems, but African governments are spending too little. It looks like we just come here for, like Sarah said, coffees, gallons of coffees, and a lot of long talk shops, but we're not trying to really put our money where our heart is. I think this will be my final point. Now, we'll just run through that. We need to support green startups, something like what Jacqueline is doing. We need to power them. We need to provide access to green finance. The vehicles that are being created across the world. Africa cannot just be a recipient, has to create its own innovative finance vehicles. We need to also access climate finance across the world. We still access less than 2% of global finance, climate finance available across the world. So there is a big problem there. Investing in knowledge sharing. So we will not just build these knowledge ecosystems in silos. We need to band together as Africa to be able to do these things. Then we also need green economy strategies. I mean, not just do things on the spur of the moment. Think long-term, think medium-term, especially in waste management, agriculture, ecotourism, and also renewable energy. Then we also have to build regulatory incentives. I already mentioned about how the US is doing that with the Inflation Reduction Act, which has significantly transformed the environments and businesses across the US. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much for that really big picture.